Desde el año 2022, la Universidad Militar Nueva Granada ha adoptado un compromiso con el futuro, un compromiso con la sostenibilidad y la educación que transforma. En el área de investigación, más de 111 proyectos han sido orientados hacia los objetivos de desarrollo sostenible, como salud y bienestar, energía limpia y producción responsable. En el ámbito académico, se han integrado 40 asignaturas enfocadas a la gestión ambiental, el cambio climático y el ecodiseño, formando estudiantes con competencias para enfrentar los retos globales. La extensión y proyección social de la UMNG ha contribuido directamente a los objetivos de desarrollo sostenible con más de 105 acciones enfocadas en paz, justicia e instituciones sólidas. La Facultad de Ingeniería lidera la formación en temas ambientales, concentrando el 63% de las asignaturas relacionadas con la sostenibilidad. Nuestro compromiso no es solo académico. Hemos desarrollado una infraestructura sostenible, promoviendo el uso eficiente de recursos, el agua y la energía. En la UMNG creemos en la igualdad de oportunidades, brindando acceso a recursos educativos a toda la comunidad universitaria. Desde la gestión de residuos hasta el transporte sostenible, cada acción es una apuesta hacia un futuro más verde y justo.
Hoy, la Universidad Militar Nueva Granada, especialmente docentes, estudiantes y personal administrativo, asumen un compromiso permanente, constante, en la línea de sostenibilidad, recordando siempre estos 17 compromisos que asume el Estado colombiano ante las Naciones Unidas al 2030. Un camino de sostenibilidad y de compromiso con los derechos humanos, especialmente aquellos de solidaridad. Con liderazgo estratégico y visión neogranadina, nos unimos en estos compromisos.
Juntos, construimos un mañana donde el conocimiento, la solidaridad y la sostenibilidad guían nuestro camino. Universidad Militar Nueva Granada. Educación neogranadina para la vida, el liderazgo y la paz. Lo que ocurre en la universidad, los acontecimientos y sus protagonistas están en UMNG Radio.
Tune in and speak up. Hello, English learners. Want to learn something interesting whilst having fun? Welcome to Tune In and Speak Up, the podcast where you'll get to know this beautiful language in depth. Each week, we'll dive into exciting topics, share practical tips, and tell you fascinating English language stories. So whether you're studying, going to work, or just relaxing, connect, listen, and let's make English part of your world. Wherever you are, whenever you want, just hit play, tune in and listen up. Tune in to UMNG Radio every Tuesday from 11 a.m. till noon. Don't just learn English, live it.
Okay, good morning. Welcome to Tune In and Speak Up, the podcast from Universidad Militar Nueva Granada, where we explore curious stories, surprising facts, and cultural insights from around the world, all through the lens of English learning. This is the podcast where unusual events from history and culture become your classroom for English practice. I'm Jorge Bermudez, teacher of English at the Department of Multicultural Studies at UMNG, part of the School of Education and Humanities. I'll be your guide through some of the most unusual and thought-provoking topics, from mysterious places on Earth to forgotten inventions and strange scientific discoveries. Whether you're learning English as a second language or just love learning something new, this podcast is for you. Ready to improve your listening skills, expand your vocabulary, and engage in meaningful conversations? Then grab your headphones, Tune in and let's speak up. Okay, today, the Bermuda Triangle. Have you ever looked closely at a map of the Atlantic Ocean and noticed that strange stretch of sea between Florida, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico? Right here in our slide. Florida, Bermuda, and San Juan in Puerto Rico. At first glance, it looks calm and inviting. The turquoise water sparkles under the sun, and the area is full of beaches, coral reefs, and cruise ships. Every year, millions of tourists travel through it, swimming, sailing, and enjoying the beauty of the Caribbean. But beneath that peaceful surface lies one of the most famous mysteries in modern history. A mystery that has fascinated and frightened people for generations. That area is known as the Bermuda Triangle. The name alone makes people pause for a moment. It sounds mysterious, like something from a science fiction story or an ancient myth. For decades, travelers, pilots, and storytellers have shared strange reports about ships and airplanes that entered this region and never came back. Some say compasses stopped working without warning. Others describe engines failing suddenly or strange lights and clouds appearing out of nowhere. In the most dramatic stories, entire crews vanished as if swallowed by the sea itself. From the very beginning, people have tried to explain what could be happening there. Some blame violent tropical storms or unexpected ocean currents. Others imagine darker forces, sea monsters rising from the deep, alien spaceships pulling vessels into the sky, or even a hidden city like Atlantis using mysterious technology. Newspapers and magazines loved these stories. They sold millions of copies with dramatic headlines and illustrations of ghostly ships disappearing under giant waves. Radio and television programs soon followed, turning the Bermuda Triangle into a global legend. It became a symbol of the unknown, a reminder that even in the age of satellites and airplanes, nature and mystery can still surprise us. But what is really behind this legend? Is there something truly dangerous out there in that part of the ocean? Or have human imagination and the media built a story that's bigger than the truth? Could it be that most of these disappearances have simple explanations hidden behind the excitement of a good mystery? Today on Tune In and Speak Up, we're going to travel across history, science, and storytelling to uncover what the Bermuda Triangle actually is and what this legend reveals about the way people face uncertainty. From the early days of exploration to the investigations of modern scientists, we'll see how a mix of fear, curiosity, and creativity turned an ordinary part of the ocean into one of the most mysterious places on Earth. So here we go. The birth of a mystery. The story of the Bermuda Triangle doesn't begin with a single shipwreck or one dramatic disappearance. It begins with something much simpler, a shape, a triangle. On most maps, its three invisible points are drawn between Miami, Bermuda, and San Juan in Puerto Rico. Inside that wide triangle lies a large part of the North Atlantic Ocean, an area crossed every year by thousands of ships, airplanes, and cruise liners. It's a busy and beautiful region full of trade routes, tourism, and tropical weather. But while sailors and pilots have long traveled through these waters, the phrase Bermuda Triangle itself is surprisingly new. It didn't come from an ancient legend or a map maker. It came from a magazine article. In 1964, an American writer named Vincent Gaddis, here in the picture, published a dramatic story called The Deadly Bermuda Triangle in Argosy, a popular magazine known for adventure tales. Right here we have the cover of that same magazine. Gaddis got a report of ships that had vanished without sending distress calls and airplanes that disappeared in clear skies. He wrote with suspense, suggesting that something beyond normal explanation might be hiding in that part of the ocean. Gaddis's article caught the public's imagination, but it was only the beginning. 10 years later, in 1974, another writer, Charles Berlitz, here in the picture as well, expanded the mystery in his best-selling book, The Bermuda Triangle. I read that book when I was a young child. Berlitz was already famous for his language learning courses, but this time he turned his attention to the unexplained. His book was full of thrilling accounts. A squadron of Navy planes that vanished during a training flight, a ship that left port and never arrived, a mysterious message sent from a pilot who said everything looked strange before his radio went silent. Berlitz didn't claim to know the truth, but he suggested fascinating possibilities. Atlantis, aliens, or unknown magnetic forces that could pull ships and planes off course. Ooh. The public was hooked. The Bermuda Triangle became a worldwide sensation. Newspapers printed maps of the mysterious area. TV documentaries showed dramatic recreations of disappearances, and adventure magazines filled their pages with spooky theories. Soon, the Bermuda Triangle wasn't just a location, it was a global symbol of the unknown. But the idea that this part of the Atlantic might be dangerous didn't begin with Gaddis or Berlitz. It goes back centuries to the earliest explorers who crossed the ocean. Long before anyone had heard of the Bermuda Triangle, sailors feared the waters around Bermuda for their violent storms, powerful currents, and unpredictable winds. The region is where warm tropical air from the south meets colder air from the north, creating sudden hurricanes and waterspouts that could easily destroy fragile wooden ships. Even, even Christopher Columbus, during his first voyage in 1492, recorded strange experiences in his journal as he sailed near the area. He wrote about seeing mysterious lights on the horizon and noticing that his compass behaved oddly, though we now know this was because he was near a place where magnetic north and true north align, something that can happen naturally. At the time, though, it seemed like a sign from another world. For hundreds of years, sailors told stories of ships disappearing into storms or being lost to the deep sea. Most of these tales had natural explanations: bad weather, human error, or mechanical problems, but they created an atmosphere of unease. The ocean, after all, was vast and full of secrets. Still, it wasn't until the 20th century that the legend exploded. Why? Because new technology made it easier than ever to report and share mysterious events. In earlier times, when a ship went missing, only local ports might hear about it. But once radio, radar, and aviation became part of daily life, their disappearances were broadcast to the whole world. A lost ship in 1910 might have made a small local headline. But when Flight 19, a group of 5 U.S. Navy planes, vanished in 1945, it became front page news across the globe. Journalists wrote with fear and fascination. wondering how 5 trained pilots and their rescue plane could vanish without a trace. So, in the end, the Bermuda Triangle wasn't born from new dangers in the sea, it was born from new communication. The ocean itself hadn't changed. What changed was the way people told stories about it. As technology advanced, mystery traveled faster than ever before. What had once been isolated tragedies became part of a single shared legend, a triangle drawn not just on maps, but in the imagination of the world. Disappearance stories that shaped the myth. Every great legend needs its heroes, its mysteries, and its tragedies. And the Bermuda Triangle has all three. Over the years, dozens of disappearances have been linked to this region, but a few stories stand out more than others. They became the foundation of the legend and gave it the power to live on people's minds. One of the most famous of all is the story of Flight 19, here in the picture. It was a clear afternoon in December 1945, just months after the end of World War II. 5 U.S. Navy bombers known as Avenger torpedo planes took off from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, for a routine training mission over the Atlantic. The flight was led by Lieutenant Charles C. Taylor, right here in the picture, an experienced pilot who had flown many missions during the war. The plan was simple: fly east, turn north, and then head back to base. A short exercise that should have taken less than 3 hours. But something went wrong. Not long after takeoff, Lieutenant Taylor radioed that his compass was malfunctioning. His instruments didn't seem to agree, and he wasn't sure of their position. He believed they were flying over the Florida Keys, a chain of islands south of the mainland, when in fact they were far out over the open Atlantic. The further they flew, the more confused the pilots became. For hours, radio operators on the ground tried to guide them home. Other pilots in the area picked up their messages, voices full of tension and uncertainty. "We can't find land," Taylor said. "Everything looks strange, even the ocean." As daylight faded and fuel began to run low, their transmissions became weaker until they stopped altogether. A rescue mission was launched immediately. The Navy sent a PBM, Mariner Flying Boat, with 13 men aboard to search for Flight 19. Here in the picture, the rescue plane. But within minutes of taking off, the rescue plane also disappeared. A passing ship later reported seeing a ball of fire in the sky, suggesting the plane may have exploded, but no wreckage was ever found. When the search finally ended, 6 aircraft and 27 men were gone without a trace. The U.S. Navy called it one of the strangest accidents in its history. Official reports blamed navigation errors, bad weather, and low fuel. But to the public, the story sounded almost supernatural. Newspapers spoke of a hole in the sky and planes swallowed by the sea. Later, Vincent Gaddis and Charles Berlitz would turn Flight 19 into the heart of the Bermuda Triangle legend. Clear proof, they claimed, that the area was cursed. But Flight 19 wasn't the first mysterious disappearance. Decades earlier, in March 1918, the USS Cyclops, one of the largest US Navy ships of its time, vanished without a single distressed call. The Cyclops was carrying more than 300 men and a heavy cargo of manganese ore from Brazil to Baltimore. It was a massive ship, more than 540 feet long, strong and modern for its day. The weather was calm, the sea smooth, and the ship was on a familiar route. Then, somewhere between Barbados and the Chesapeake Bay, it was simply gone. No SOS signal was sent, no wreckage was ever found, and no one ever saw the ship or its crew again. It remains the largest non combat loss of life in U.S. naval history. Some said a storm or structural failure caused it. Others whispered darker explanations that the Cyclops had been taken by a sea monster, or perhaps slipped through a mysterious portal in the ocean. Whatever the cause, the disappearance of such a huge vessel in perfect weather seemed almost impossible, and that made it unforgettable. The list of mysterious losses continued to grow. In January 1948, the Star Tiger, here in the picture, a British passenger plane flying from the Azores to Bermuda, disappeared just before landing. The following year, another aircraft, the Star Ariel, vanished on a flight between Bermuda and Jamaica under similar conditions. Both aircraft had experienced minor technical problems, but neither sent an emergency message. Search teams found nothing: no debris, no oil, no trace of the planes or their passengers. Then, in 1963, came the case of the SS Marine Sulphur Queen, a 500-foot long tanker carrying molten sulfur from Texas to Virginia. It had a crew of 39 people. On February 4th, its last radio message reported calm weather and normal operations. 2 days later, it was missing. The Coast Guard later found only a few pieces of debris and life vests, but no bodies and no main wreck. The mystery deepened. How could such a large ship disappear so completely? Each of these incidents, when viewed alone, might have been explained by mechanical failure, bad weather, or simple human error. But together they began to form a pattern in people's imaginations. Writers and journalists connected the dots, drawing invisible lines between the coordinates where each disaster had occurred. And suddenly, there was a triangle of fear. The more the media repeated these stories, the stronger the legend became. Headlines used words like vanished, swallowed, and never returned. Radio hosts debated strange forces, and television documentaries showed dramatic recreations of planes disappearing into clouds or ships fading beneath enormous waves. For audiences, it was both terrifying and exciting, a real life mystery that no one could solve. And yet, as we'll soon discover, every one of these disappearances, even the most famous ones, has a rational explanation waiting beneath the surface. The Bermuda Triangle may seem like a supernatural trap, but science and evidence tell a different story, if we're willing to look closely enough, of course. Science versus speculation. For decades, scientists, meteorologists, and experienced navigators have tried to answer a simple but fascinating question. Is the Bermuda Triangle really different from any other part of the ocean? The legend has been repeated so many times that many people assume there must be something special about it, some strange natural power or hidden danger that science cannot explain. But according to experts from Encyclopedia Britannica and researchers at the University of California, Santa Barbara, the truth is much simpler and maybe a little disappointing for mystery lovers. Statistically, The Bermuda Triangle is not unusual at all. The number of ships and planes there that go missing there is no higher than in any other busy region of ocean travel. The Atlantic Ocean between Florida, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico is one of the most heavily used transportation zones on the planet. It connects North America, the Caribbean, and South America, carrying thousands of flights, cargo ships, and cruise liners every year. When you consider how much traffic passes through it daily, it's not surprising that accidents occasionally happen. The same would be true for any other ocean route with similar activity. Only the Bermuda Triangle has the reputation. Still, people are curious. If it's not magic, then what causes so many of these disappearances? To understand that, we need to look not at myths, but at science, the real forces of nature that make the ocean such a challenging place. Researchers, oceanographers, and pilots have identified several natural explanations that can account for most of the accidents once thought to be mysterious. Let's explore them one by one. Number one, human error. Even with all our technology, human error remains one of the leading causes of accidents at sea and in the air. Before GPS and satellite systems, pilots and sailors had to rely on compasses, here on the map, on the top picture, maps and visual landmarks. Over the open ocean, where everything looks the same, small navigational mistakes could easily lead travelers hundreds of kilometers off course. In the case of Flight 19, this seems to be exactly what happened. Investigators later found that the plane's instruments were likely working correctly. However, their leader, Lieutenant Charles Taylor, had become disoriented and misinterpreted his readings. Once he believed that his compass had failed, he ignored his instruments and guided the entire group in the wrong direction, out into open water instead of back towards Florida. By the time the error was realized, their fuel was nearly gone. This kind of confusion was common in the mid 20th century, especially over the sea where there are few visual clues. When pilots lose orientation, a phenomenon called spatial disorientation can occur. It makes them believe they are level or turning in one direction when they are actually moving in another. In the days before digital navigation, this could turn a routine mission into a deadly one. Number two, weather and ocean conditions. The Western Atlantic is known for its unpredictable weather. Meteorologists describe it as one of the most energetic and changeable regions on Earth. Warm air from the tropics meets cold air from the north, creating sudden thunderstorms, tropical depressions, and hurricanes. According to BBC Science Focus, even small changes in air pressure can quickly turn calm skies into violent storms. Another key factor is the Gulf Stream, a massive ocean current that flows northward from the Gulf of Mexico. It moves at speeds faster than most people can swim, sometimes over 4 miles per hour, and it can produce water waves higher than 6 meters. When a ship or plane experiences trouble near this current, it can be pushed far off course within minutes. In the days before modern weather satellites and radar, storms could appear without warning. A ship caught in a sudden squall might sink before it could send a distress signal. Wreckage would scatter quickly, often carried hundreds of kilometers away. For search teams in the 1940s or 1950s, finding a small plane or a wooden vessel in such a vast moving ocean was almost impossible. Even today, with all our technology, hurricanes continue to surprise experts with their speed and intensity. Imagine how terrifying it must have been for sailors in earlier centuries, facing the same forces with no radar, no communication, and no way to predict what was coming. 3. Waves. One of the most fascinating scientific discoveries in recent years involves rogue waves, enormous, unpredictable walls of water that can appear suddenly even in calm seas. For centuries, sailors told stories about such waves, but scientists considered them legends until the late 20th century. Then, satellite measurements proved they were real. Rogue waves form when several smaller waves combine at just the right moment, creating a single powerful surge that can reach 25 to 30 meters high, as tall as a 10-story building. They rise suddenly without warning and can strike a ship with the force of an explosion. Even large steel vessels can be broken apart in seconds. A British research program, Channel 4's Science of Storms, ran computer models simulating these phenomena. The results showed that rogue waves could easily damage or destroy ships the size of the USS Cyclops, one of the Bermuda Triangle's most famous disappearances. Oceanographers now believe that some of the mysterious losses, one blamed on aliens or underwater portals, might actually have been caused by these rare but natural events. Rogue waves are especially likely to form where ocean currents, like the Gulf Stream, meet strong winds and opposing waves, conditions that are common in the triangle. In short, nature itself can be much more powerful and unpredictable than any supernatural theory. Number 4, magnetic anomalies. Many popular books and movies describe compasses spinning woo, 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 widely in the Bermuda Triangle as if invisible forces were at work. However, modern studies show that the area does not have any unique magnetic properties. In fact, scientists have measured magnetic fields across the region and found nothing unusual. So, why do some navigators report strange compass readings? The answer lies in a normal but tricky fact of navigation: the difference between magnetic north and true north. At most places on Earth, these 2 points are not the same, which means navigators must correct their instruments to avoid small errors. Interestingly, one of the few places on the planet where magnetic north and true north align perfectly passes through the Bermuda Triangle. That means a compass in the area might appear to behave strangely simply because it points directly north, something sailors who don't expect it might misinterpret. In earlier times, before navigational corrections were fully understood, this natural alignment could confuse even experienced pilots. What seemed like a supernatural event was really a case of geography and magnetism. Number 5, methane hydrates. A more recent and less common theory involves methane hydrate, natural gas trapped in ice like crystals deep beneath the ocean floor. Some scientists have suggested that if these gases were suddenly released, they could reduce the density of the water, making it unable to support a ship's weight and causing it to sink quickly. It's an interesting idea, and laboratory experiments have shown that have shown that such effects are possible on a smaller scale. The Barbara's Department of Geography found no evidence that large methane eruptions have ever occurred in the Bermuda Triangle. These events are extremely rare and tend to happen in colder, shallower seas like the Arctic. So, while the methane theory sounds dramatic, it doesn't match the geological reality of the Atlantic near Bermuda. So, what is the big picture? When all these factors are considered together, human error, unpredictable weather, ocean currents, rogue waves, and magnetic or geological phenomena, a clear pattern emerges. None of these causes are supernatural. They are simply part of how our planet works. Science shows that the Bermuda Triangle's reputation comes not from anything magical, but from the power of storytelling. People remember mysteries more vividly than explanations, and each strange disappearance adds another layer to the legend. The real wonder is not in the sea itself, but in how human imagination turns ordinary events into extraordinary tales. Okay, so the Bermuda Triangle today. If the Bermuda Triangle isn't actually dangerous, why does the legend continue? The answer lies not in the ocean, but in our minds, in the way humans combine curiosity, fear, and imagination to make sense of the unknown. For most scientists, the Bermuda Triangle is just another busy part of the Atlantic Ocean. Yet, for storytellers, journalists, and travelers, it is a symbol, an invisible zone where logic fades and mystery begins. The legend lives because it satisfies something deep within us, the desire to believe that there are still secrets left in the world. Today, the Bermuda Triangle has become more than a myth, it's a global brand. The Tourism Office of Bermuda, as noted on www.gotobermuda.com, embraces the legend as part of the island's cultural identity. Visitors can join Triangle Boat Tours, visit maritime museums, or buy t shirts and mugs marked with compass symbols and mysterious waves. Some diving companies even organize expeditions to famous wreck sites, blending history, science, and a touch of adventure. The mystery, in this sense, has become good business, a way to turn fear into fascination. Pop culture has played a huge role in keeping the myth alive. Since the 1950s, television, radio, and print media have retold the same stories with new twists. The 1970s brought best selling paperbacks and adventure movies, while the 1980s and 1990s saw documentaries that mixed fact with fiction. In the digital age, the triangle continues to appear in YouTube videos, podcasts, and science fiction shows. Some programs link it to alien abduction, ooh, time travel, ooh, or hidden energy portals. Even video games and novels use the Bermuda Triangle as a setting for lost worlds of or forgotten civilizations. The legend has become so strong that it shapes the way people see the ocean. For example, travel websites sometimes mention crossing the triangle as if it were an adventure in itself. Airlines and cruise lines have even joked about offering triangle routes for thrill seeking travelers. While these ideas are playful, they show how a modern myth can enter everyday culture. Still, experts continue to remind the public that the facts tell a calmer story. According to the Encyclopedia Britannica, And a 2023 review by global academic Star, more than 1,000 ships and hundreds of aircrafts cross the Bermuda area every single week without any unusual incidents. Oceanographers from the U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration confirmed that the triangle's accident rate is no higher than that of any other heavily traveled sea region. In fact, with modern navigation systems, radar, and satellite communication, traveling through the Atlantic today is safer than at any other point in history. Ships and planes are tracked in real time, and weather predictions allow crews to avoid dangerous storms long before they form. If the triangle once seemed mysterious, it's mostly because earlier generations lacked the tools we now take for granted. But technology alone cannot erase myths. So, why does the story survive so strongly? Partly because humans love mystery. When something goes wrong in a place we can't fully see, like the deep ocean, our minds search for patterns and causes. If there's no clear answer, we often invent one. Psychologists call this apophenia, the human tendency to find meaning in random events. In the case of the Bermuda Triangle, imagination filled the gaps left by incomplete information. Another reason is that the myth gives people a way to talk about fear itself. The open sea has always represented both beauty and danger. It is a space of freedom, but also of uncertainty. By telling stories about the triangle, these people express those mixed emotions. The legend becomes a safe way to explore our anxieties about nature, technology, and the limits of human control. For teachers, researchers, and English learners, the Bermuda Triangle also provides a fascinating example of how information spreads and changes. When Vincent Gaddis first wrote about it in 1964, he presented it as journalism. Later, authors like Charles Berlitz turned it into adventure literature. Then came movies, talk shows, and websites, each adding new details and exaggerations. This process shows how easy it is for facts to evolve into fiction and how important it is to ask questions such as, where did this claim come from? Who benefits from repeating it? Is there real evidence behind it? In this way, the Bermuda Triangle serves as a tool for developing critical thinking. It reminds us that not all mysteries are evidence of the supernatural. Sometimes they are simply stories that grew over time. By comparing sources, checking data, and listening to experts, we learn to separate curiosity from confusion. And yet, there's another reason why the legend refuses to die. It connects us emotionally to the sea itself. The ocean is one of the last places on Earth that still feels truly wild. Its depths remain unexplored, its storms remain uncontrollable. Even with satellite submarines and sensors, we know more about the surface of Mars than the bottom of our own oceans. Standing on the deck of a ship in the middle of the Atlantic, you can feel the same wonder that early explorers felt centuries ago. The vastness, the silence, and the unpredictable waves all remind us that nature still holds power, and that human beings, no matter how advanced, are still small in comparison. The Bermuda Triangle, in this sense, is more than a place. It's a symbol of the limits of human knowledge and the beauty of the unknown. So, next time someone mentions the Bermuda Triangle, You don't have to think of it as a cursed zone or a scientific anomaly. Think of it as a story, a mirror that reflects both our fears and our fascination with the world we live in. It teaches us to question, to imagine, and to respect the mysteries that remain. Okay, and we are about to close our program, so let's go to the final thoughts. And let's close with a reflection. The Bermuda Triangle is more than a point on a map. It's a mirror of our imagination. For decades, we have used it to express our fear of the unknown and our desire to find meaning in chaos. Each ship that disappeared, each plane that failed to return, became part of a collective story about danger, adventure, and mystery. But the scientific research shows a different message. The world is not full of magic holes or invisible forces. What we call mystery often turns out to be a mix of weather, physics, and human behavior. The real wonder lies in our search for answers. When we look closely at the Bermuda Triangle, we don't just learn about storms and navigation. We learn about ourselves. We see how curiosity can turn fear into knowledge and how stories can travel faster than facts. So the next time you hear about a strange event, remember the lesson of the triangle. Ask questions, check sources, listen to experts, but also keep a little space in your mind for wonder. Because science and curiosity are not enemies, they are partners in the adventure of understanding our world. Okay, and that's it for today. Thank you so much for joining me today on Tune In and Speak Up, the podcast from Universidad Militar Nueva Granada. I hope you enjoyed our journey through the mysterious Bermuda Triangle. Don't forget to share it with your classmates, friends, or fellow English learners. This season, we're about to finish this season, we'll continue exploring unusual but meaningful topics that show how language, history, and everyday life are deeply connected. If today's episode helped you learn something new or gave you a new perspective on culture and communication, then our mission is accomplished. If you'd like to share your thoughts, reflections, or feedback, we'd love to hear from you. Your ideas help us improve, and your voice helps shape future episodes. This podcast is for learners like you, curious, committed, and ready to take the next step. We'll be back next week with another topic that might surprise you, or it may not surprise because next week in North America they celebrate Thanksgiving. So we're going to be talking about Thanksgiving and why it is important to learn about Thanksgiving for a person learning the English language, okay? It will make you think or spark conversation in English. In the meantime, keep listening, keep practicing, and most of all, keep speaking up. Until next time, Leito, thank you very much. Bye-bye. See you next week with the story of Thanksgiving.
Lo que ocurre en la universidad, los acontecimientos y sus protagonistas están en UMNG Radio.